Well, good morning, everyone. My name is MightyStream, and I'm going to do your June the 9th Spiritual Principle Day in a meditation. Hope you're doing well this morning. Okay, let's go ahead and get into this meditation. The title of the meditation is, get it where I can see it, Communication is a Two-Way Street. We learn to listen carefully and to communicate in a way that we can be heard. Living Clean, Chapter 5, Being a Parent. Addiction does a number on our ability to communicate. We can get so preoccupied with self-obsession that it's hard to pay attention to others, unless, of course, there's something in it for us. For many of us, the ability to hear the message for the first time, to truly experience the hope that our message offers, was a result of desperation. A member wrote, "The people who had what I wanted shared with honesty and vulnerability. They taught me how to save my life." We needed something different very badly, and the message of hope got through. We were home. And then comes early recovery. Minds racing, our bodies difficult to keep still. When I was new, I couldn't hear anyone. I couldn't hear what anyone was saying. Excuse me. One member wrote, "The noise in my head was just way too loud. I kept coming back and things started to get through. The slogans began to make sense. The fog in my head cleared away and I shared honestly. Others responded and I felt connected." Clearing out the noise in our heads helps us communicate better in all of our relationships. We learn by attending meetings, by connecting with our sponsor, by helping sponsees, and those lessons in communication improve our ability to communicate in other areas of our lives. Our growth improves our relationships with our partners, our parents, our friends, our children. Sometimes we simply shut up and listen. One parent in recovery shared, "I couldn't get my child to listen to me, and my sponsor reminded me it's a two-way street. I should try listening to my child more." When we give our attention to others, we understand them better. If words fail us, we speak through our actions. Recovery thrives on vibrant two-way communication. I will listen with an open heart and share in that same spirit. Let's take a moment of silence, followed by the we version of the Serenity Prayer. Moment of silence now, please. Thank you. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Just for today, please and thank you. This is a powerful meditation. It's talking about communication being a two-way street. And in particular, it's talking about how things are when we first get into the program, when we first started to recover from active addiction, those initial stages. the withdrawal symptoms, the things that we endure just trying to stay connected to the process. And for many of us, it was a new process. I had never gone to Narcotics Anonymous meetings. When I started my recovery, now I had been to some of their events because I had relatives that were involved in recovery. And when I say their events, I'm not even talking about conventions. I had gone to they would have tournaments, softball tournaments, home groups versus different home groups. So I had attended those type of outdoor barbecue events. But to be involved with Narcotics Anonymous, when I first started, I had so many thoughts. It was very, very difficult to settle my thoughts long enough to hear anything that anyone had to say. And if something did get through, I probably would end up offended by it. And I can remember leaving the meeting early several times. Coffee was something that I would get and sit down and drink, but I sometimes it was not even my anxiety that would force me out of the meeting. It might be that I wanted to go to the restroom and did not want to disturb the meeting or be noticed. So, because of my perception of how people would view me, my self obsession, um, I would say, okay, let me just take my purse and not return. I'm not going to go back in the meeting. It's all quiet, and I don't want that type of attention. And so sometimes I would just leave. And it really didn't have anything to do with necessarily being offended or hearing something I didn't want to hear. But there were times where just my anxiety and self obsession about people's perception of me would cause me to just take leave. And then, I mean, at some point in time, um, I realized that the slogans weren't meant to harm me. The shares weren't targeted at me when they would say, keep coming back or something of that nature. I realized that they said that to everyone. They weren't harming me. They weren't cross sharing to me. This is what they called carrying the message. And I began to settle in. And I began to, with my weak bladder, right? I began to sit closer to the door so that if I needed to leave, I could come back in and I wouldn't have the whole room to cross in order to get back to my seat. So I started making these minor adjustments. And those adjustments allowed me to enjoy the atmosphere of recovery longer. And the longer I would sit down in a meeting and remember that slogan, don't leave before the miracle happens. And I needed a miracle. The longer I would stay in the meeting, the more my heart began to open, the more my mind began to open. And I began to see, I fit in pretty well here. This is a place where I can come and go when I want. There's no real rules when I come here. And no one's going to outwardly judge me. They might judge me, but I'm not going to be able to read that by their actions most of the time because inclusivity is promoted, right? It is encouraged, I should say, not promoted, as a part of Narcotics Anonymous. And so I began to listen to the voices of others instead of my own voice. There's a sponsee in here who was having a problem with their children, listening to them. And the sponsor encouraged them to be quiet and listen to the children. Hear what they're saying to you. It's a two-way street, just like sponsorship is, right? It's a two-way street. It's not just you and I doing all of the talking. The people in our lives, allow them to have voice. Allow them to bend your ear for a while without you having to give feedback without you having to counsel. Allow them to be able to speak and you hear. And as they begin to see that you're equally as interested in them as you want them to be in you, they will begin to trust and open up more. And that is what I call a relationship, right? A relationship, meaning that something that is going back and forth, at least between two people, right? It's going to go back and forth. For instance, a relay race is, generally speaking, something that is, well, it's a sport. And so people run their segment and then they pass the baton to the next person. So they relay it, right? They give it over and then the next person takes it, right? And that's sort of what this is about, a relationship. You have the floor, you're speaking, you pass the baton to speak to the next person. They do their thing, they pass it back to you. Today, let's work on our vibrant communication. Let it be a two-way communication, no matter who you're dealing with. Some people discount young people. Young people have a lot to say. Children have a lot to say. And there's a lot of peer pressure they're under. In my city, a teenager just got shot in the head and found in the alley just yesterday, right after school would end. Young man gone. These moments we have with our children, let us cherish them. Let us cherish them and allow them. If they're grandchildren, a lot of people are raising grandchildren. I'm raising great nephews, right? A lot of people are raising children that they didn't birth. They have things on their mind. Let's allow them to speak and have a real two-way communication with them. If you're like me from the old school where you speak when spoken to and nobody talking to you right now, this grown folks conversation. Go sit down somewhere, right? Common. If you're from the era that I'm from, that's common. This is an A and B conversation. See your way on out, right? So common, but today we can't afford to do that because children are so into technology that they can literally go all day without having anything to say other than I'm hungry. Let's pull them away from that technology, those devices, and sit them down. How's school today? Anyone bullying you today? Anyone trying to force you to smoke some weed today? Anything going on that you're not sure about and might need some help to navigate it? You'll be surprised what comes out of their mouths. But don't be too surprised and don't act too surprised. Just listen. Just listen and open up the door not only to the two-way communication, but a better life for them too. It's horrible feeling like you can't speak to the adults in your life. And now I didn't have that problem with my mother, but there were times when she would have company over, I dare not approach unless it was an emergency. And if it was, it had to be preceded by, excuse me. That's how I was raised. So today we're working on communication and I'm going to work on it too with you guys and turn it over to you and allow you to give me feedback. Down in the comments below, let me know how you're doing today. As soon as I see your comments, I promise you I will respond. Sometimes I just respond with a heart to let you know that I've seen it. And when I get an opportunity, I come back to it and actually write something back to you. You can always reach me at recoveryofhope21@gmail.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Listen, have a beautiful day on purpose. Make June the 9th of this year the best June the 9th that you have ever lived. And remember, someone always has it worse than we do. So let's move forward on this day with a spirit of gratitude. My name is Mighty Stream, and I will be talking to you tomorrow.